What's happening, guys? Happy Friday and welcome to Sleep Stream Stash, a weekly fantasy show covering all things fantasy football. My name is Memphis. You can follow me on Twitter X at DWZ Memphis. And with me, one of my two co-hosts, the man on the West Coast, Mr. Evan Ringler. You can follow him at Evan Ringler FF. Evan, big day for you. As we were kicking this thing off, Evan said, I'm nervous. And I was like, why would you be nervous? You've done a million podcasts. But Evan, welcome to the show. But tell the live audience why you're nervous, brother.
So I have been a giant Mariners fan my entire life, despite growing up in Las Vegas. And today is the biggest game in Mariners history since I've been alive, essentially. And I'll be there. So, yeah, my heart is already racing. It's 5 hours away from now. Asked Memphis to move up the show a little bit just to make sure I'm there early. Can't wait, but also can't wait to get it over with.
I did a little Googling as you were talking, and I see all the people already watching live on Twitter, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Go ahead and start dropping questions. Like I said, it's just Evan and I today. Jonny had some family things he's attending to, so we should have time at the end of this show to get to some questions, whether that's start, sit, dynasty, or whatever. Now, part of the reason why this is like a guilty pleasure on my part, why I like doing podcasts with guys like Evan and Jonny, and why I personally jumped at the chance to do this show with them, is I'm the old guy on the team. I'm Unk, but I like hanging out with younger guys because you get two different personalities, right? You get two different lenses of looking at sports. And I heard you say that this is the biggest game in Seattle Mariners history, but I love and I respect how you put the caveat of since you've been alive. And I'm like, wait a minute. Did you forget? And I knew it was the 90s. I threw it in Google real quick. This is the biggest game in Mariners history since Game 5 of the 1995 divisional series.
Yep.
That was the famous one with Ken Griffey Jr., I believe Edgar.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Edgar Martinez and Jay Buhner. What an absolutely classic game. And this is, yes, guys, we got plenty of time for football. We're definitely going to talk football here in just a few minutes. But this is what sports is all about, right? Like football, especially playoffs, it's win or go home. But that is tonight. There is something about, and you could be a hockey fan, you could be a hoops fan, or in this case, baseball. I'm a baseball fan. The hat that I'm wearing, if you're watching live on YouTube, it was my son's high school baseball team hat. I coach baseball. There is something magical about a Game 5, Game 7, and in the case of some, Game 3 of a series, man. I love the urgency of the NFL March Madness. But yeah, dude, you're in for a good time, and I know you'll be on the edge of your seat the entire game. Now, are you going with family? Or are you going with like friends? Who are you going to see this game with?
With my friends. Yeah, with my roommates. So the three biggest games in Mariners history, I would say, are today, and then two games in 1995, the game 163 to get into the playoffs, and then the Game 5 of the ALDS that you mentioned. And that wasn't just important because they could have gone to the ALCS, or they did. It was for it was for the franchise. The Mariners most likely would have left Seattle if they didn't make it to the championship series that year. And funny enough, my dad was actually at both those games in 95. So it's only right that I can be the Ringler at this game.
I mean, that gives me chills as a dad with a son who's a baseball player and a baseball fan. That is amazing. And I'm reading. So Game 5 of the ALDS is considered the most dramatic. It featured Edgar Martinez. See, I knew that. 11th inning double that scored the winning runs and clinched a spot in the American League Championship Series. So I'm going to ask you, and then guys watching on the show and listening on the podcast, I promise you we're going to football-related stuff. Who is your current favorite Mariner, and who is your favorite Mariner of all time?
All time is very easy for me. It's Ichiro. He's always been my favorite. Just the way he approached the game, different than anybody that's ever done it. And then right now, it's tough between Julio Rodriguez or Cal Raleigh, the big dumper. But I guess I would say Julio just because he's kind of meant more to me until this season, where obviously the big dumper has taken over the world.
Big dumper is in relation to the size of this man's ass. If you don't watch pro baseball, throw Cal Raleigh in your search engine, and if you're a fan of prodigious asses, male or female, you will be impressed. I grew up with, and he was a rookie at the time I was still collecting cards as Ken Griffey Jr. Arguably the best swing in the history of Major League Baseball.
Absolutely.
Without a question, the best left-handed swing of all time, to the point to where I worked in retail for a long time, sporting goods retail, and Nike had their own division of baseball apparel, and it was called Swingman. And the silhouette, like the Jordan Dunkman on Flight Jordan basketball shoes, the silhouette of the Swingman was Ken Griffey Jr.'s swing. God, I love baseball, but you know what? I love two other things, Evan, on top of baseball. I love fantasy football, but I also love Fast Draft.
Pour one out for an incredible best ball season. It was a breakout 2025 for Fast Draft, but now the NFL action has started. That means it's DFS season. That's right. You might think, oh, wow, DFS, I can't win DFS. Oh, but you can on Fast Draft. You just pick any 6 guys, and you put them in a handful of booster spots. There's no salary rubric you have to follow. You're not going up against thousands of killer bots in these tournaments. Oh, no. These are regular people grabbing their 6 favorite plays of the week, and that's all you have to do. And we post the ownership so that you can choose how much chalk you want. There is no drafting. It's called the Quick 6 Super Slam. The Quick 6 Super Slam is the signature DFS contest at Fast Draft. It is changing DFS. We are making DFS great again. So go to fastdraft.app and use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match, and let's go start drafting faster.
So do love Fast Draft, and we're going to play the ad for the Flex 6 Frenzy. There's been a rule change that makes it a lot more user-friendly in Flex 6, but I got hit with the Evan, you're not too far removed from college. And my son all of a sudden needs his car, so guess who gets to make the round trip to Cincinnati tomorrow? Dear old dad.
Ouch.
So, well, the one thing about going to Ohio from Indiana is that I get to get a couple of entries. So I'm going to do all of my research tonight while I'm waiting him to come from his dorm room to my truck. I'm going to place like 6 to 8 different entries into Fast Draft for the weekend. If you're the audio listener, you can use my podcast code. It's Warzone, WARZONE, all caps, all one word. That'll get you the dollar for dollar deposit match up to $50. So you deposit 50, you get 50. You got $100 worth to play Fast Draft. Or if you're watching on YouTube and can't remember what was that code, just use code FAST, FAST at checkout. Get that match. All right.
And then one more thing on Fast Draft. This week there is a free Quick 6 Super Slam contest. If you've never played on Fast Draft before, you can go in there, put in one entry, and if you win it all, then you just get $100. It's free. So might as well go enter that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that. I got the update about the changing of the number of teams in the flex game. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, if your fantasy team's already in the shitter or you're in a rebuild in Dynasty, there is no funner way to sweat Sunday action than Fast Draft. Now, Evan, I've got lots to cover with you. We've got our sleepers, streamers, stashers. We got all of that. But I wanted to get your take as a Dynasty gamer, because if you tuned back into last week's show, was not giving Evan the appropriate due for being a Dynasty gamer. And I wanted to get your thoughts on Cam Skattebo. Now, I'll give mine real quick on the Dynasty Warzone. I'm not anti-Cam. If you're a contender and you got him in the 2nd or 3rd round of your Dynasty rookie draft, you are walking on sunshine. But I'm also the advocate of unathletic, by NFL terms, not like average Joe terms, but by NFL terms, unathletic running backs with marginal to minimal draft capital. I'm an advocate that if you're not contending, go get any first for him in a league, but he's also the kind of guy you want to root for. So I want to get a different perspective. I want to get your perspective on what you're doing with Cam Skattebo in Dynasty right now.
I think you're right. If you're not contending, you should probably trade him away. We don't know how long this is going to last. For one, his body, he's just getting hit so much, and there's a good chance he does get injured. But I want to push back on the unathletic thing a little bit. He is unathletic by NFL combine standards, but that doesn't mean that he's not a athletic running back. Look at somebody like Bucky Irving, for example. He didn't perform well at the combine whatsoever, but you watch him on the field and he makes people miss, and he's explosive in the open field. Cam Skattebo can just run you over, and he can juke you out, and he can catch the ball. I really am all in on Skattebo's skill set. It's just the injury factor. You're right that if you're not contending, you should look to trade him away for a first. But if you're contending, man, just keep him in the lineup, and he's going to keep smashing. I had him as a top 12 running back rest of season this week in like RB8 weekly. So I'm all in over here.
And if you like rooting for the players on your fantasy and dynasty team, like we've all had the guy at occasion, like a Tyreek Hill, that just kind of gives you the ick off the field. It just kind of feels gross having him on your team. But if you want a dude that you can just root for, I will say, dude, Skattebo is that guy. And I tweeted this out earlier at DWZ Memphis. It's like, why is his fan base, like Taylor Swift for the younger generation of ladies, some dudes, but for the younger generation of ladies, she changed an era, no pun intended, and her fans are called Swifties, right? I feel like Cam Skattebo, like he's the handoff from the millennial generation to this new generation of fans. Like Rob Gronkowski was the original version. Now we're handing it off to Cam Skattebo. Why is his group of fans not called the Scat Pack?
That's pretty good. That's pretty
perfect,
good.
Right?
It's the Scat
Pack.
Yeah,
it needs to be a thing. It's already popular in popular lexicon because of the Dodge series of cars, the Challenger and the Charger. So it's already got that crossover. He's not as fast as a Charger or a Challenger, I will tell you that. But he is fun, and something that I'm going to be working on this offseason. I've got some dynasty projects on my plate, and we were discussing a guy like Bashard Smith, who we talked about last week on the show. Super athletic dude, right? Explosive, got all of the physical metrics and talents, the combine stuff that you could want. And sometimes those guys hit, but very rarely do they. And then you just get guys like Cam Skattebo, who are just football players.
right.
It's like if you were to put him next to Smith and say, "Hey, pick me the athlete," someone's probably more often than not are going to point to Rashad Smith. But if you start asking football people in football circles who is the football player, they're going to look at Cam. And that's going into my personal. We're doing some top secret. I can't really talk about it, but I will because I've never been a rule follower. Dynasty rookie stuff we're already working on behind the scenes at Player Profiler, and that's going into my personal equation this year. It's great that he's a good athlete. Is he a football player? The 1 to 3 year career arc of people who have 1 to 3 years in the league are littered with great athletes. But you look at, there's just dozens and dozens and hundreds of guys who are just good football players. We've got to add that into our dynasty rankings. Sometimes just being good at it's ironic that being good at football makes you good at football. All right, we're going to jump into this because I really appreciate all of the comments and questions already, and we want to have time for those. Throw me your sleeper. Just me and you, we're going to give you one. We're still going to give you two of each. You're like, oh no, we're going to get a third less show because no Jonny. Nope, that's not how it works. You're still going to get two sleepers, two streamers, and two stashes from Evan and I. So who is your sleeper?
This week I'm rolling with Hollywood Brown. The Lions have been the fourth worst defense in adjusted fantasy points allowed versus wide receivers this season. And now they're missing their 3 starting cornerbacks. So that's only going to get worse. I think that either Hollywood or Tyquan Thornton is going to have a big game here. And I'm going to bet on Hollywood as he's ran more routes and seen more targets than Tyquan Thornton in both games since Xavier Worthy has returned. Also, Hollywood has excelled versus man coverage this year. Yards per out run over 2, target rate over 30% against man coverage. Detroit has the third highest rate of man coverage in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I like it. And I almost, this is sleepers, it's not breakouts. But this is something else you can start doing is you use the points allowed data as something, but then you can also use your Seattle Seahawks have cluster injuries in the secondary. Last week, 3 of the 4 starters didn't suit up, and Nick, I don't know how to, yeah, he's banged up this week, although you might get a couple of the other guys back. I almost put Travis Hunter on this list for the exact same reason. When you're playing games like DraftKings, big tournaments or whatever, these are the kind of guys that you have to put on there because you just can't go chalk across the board. Your salary budgeting won't go as far as it will so you got to have a guy like this. I like it. I think this game is going to be a shootout. I mean, I'm not going to say it's season on the line for the Chiefs, but it puts them in a really bad spot if they were to lose. It's the same way I feel about the Ravens this week. You know what they say, you don't want to take on an animal backed into a corner. That's kind of Kansas City right now. If they go 2-4, I mean, what are you going to have to be to make the playoffs in the AFC? At least 10-7? Is that fair?
Yeah, 10 wins most likely gets you in.
Most likely is going to be the minimum to get you in. I mean, you got to think the Chargers and the Broncos are at least both going to, win 10. A surprising 2 10-win teams in Indianapolis and Jacksonville. They're both 4-1 right now. They only need 6 more wins apiece. And if you're Kansas City and you lose this game, now all of a sudden you've got to go 8-3 over your next 11 games. That's no easy feat for these guys. They're going to be behind. They're going to come out firing. I would just tell you, if you're betting this game, bet the over. Well, the Sunday night games have been really, really good lately. This will be another one. I co-sign. I feel weird or dirty or gross calling Travis Etienne a sleeper, but when he's listed as the RB19 on DraftKings at $5,900, I think that qualifies. Evan, is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, there's different definitions of a sleeper for everyone. In shallower leagues, people might not know whether to start Travis Etienne. So
you got to start fair. 2 running backs, and I mean, he is in the same range within a couple of $100 of guys like Chase Brown. And this is 100% playing against the defense that is your Seattle Seahawks. They have given up. Now, mind you, they have played 1 full game less than the Giants and the Eagles, but they are the clear leader in receptions allowed to the running back position. And we saw what Rachaad White just did to this defense last week. Now Seattle got to fly all the way across the country. Outside of going to Miami, I don't know there's a longer flight in the NFL than Seattle to Jacksonville, Tampa Bay area. But that's a huge flight. Secondary's banged up. And unlike Tampa Bay, where they've got, 2-3 really good wide receivers, the wide receivers in Jacksonville haven't been setting it on fire. And there's been a lot of work for the running backs. I think Travis Etienne, and if you're looking for if you're looking for the technical definition of a sleeper, you could go Bashal Tootin. If you're looking for someone free, or maybe you're in a bye week, injury week in your dynasty league where you got to play someone where, you start 10 or 12 weekly because of the reception possibility and the explosiveness. But I'm going Etienne. Again, we'll go from a dynasty angle. First of all, what do you think about Etienne this week against your Seahawks? And then is there a more I don't say underappreciated since Josh Jacobs running back than Travis Etienne?
I do somewhat like Etienne this week. It's a weird matchup because the Seahawks run defense has been awesome this year, one of the best in football. Like you mentioned, though, they are allowing a lot of receptions to the running backs. And I would say that there's still a chance the Jags can run the ball on the Seahawks because the Jags run blocking has been really good this year. So I like this play. I don't necessarily think he gets into the running back 1 conversation unless he, just happens to get a couple touchdowns, which can happen. You never know. Yeah, I think this is a solid play. You should probably have him in your lineups this week. From a dynasty angle, I think you're absolutely right. He has been completely disrespected throughout his career, similar to Josh Jacobs. And I think a lot of that has to do with being on the Jaguars. He hasn't really shown a ton of talent outside of his rookie year. So yeah, I think you're right about that.
All right. Before we go to our streamers, you ready for the funnest stat of the week that I found while doing research for this show?
Absolutely.
The Jaguars are the only team in the NFL with a positive touchdown to interception ratio. Every team, and it just makes sense, has given up more passing touchdowns than they have interceptions, except the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've given up 8 passing touchdowns on the season, have collected 10 interceptions on the season. There might not be a bigger fan without the last name Darnold than me of Sam Darnold, but if you're in a position to where you can potentially fade him this week, I think it might. This Jacksonville defense has been for real. They do have some injuries. Like I said, I was doing some research and I thought, man, that's wild. How do you have more INTs than TDs given up? But it's the truth. All right, man, hit us with some stream. Hit us with the stream steam.
Yeah, that Jacksonville defense. It is somewhat real. I do think it's pretty good. I wouldn't expect them to have more interceptions than passing touchdowns allowed going forward. Kind of like the Seahawks actually in that game. My streamer this week is Emanuel Wilson, the backup running back on the Packers. He is $4,100 on DK, super cheap. The Packers have the highest implied team total this week, around 30 points, and are favored by 14.5 points against the Bengals. That Cincinnati defense has also been one of the best matchups for running backs. They've allowed more points per game to running backs than any other team. If this is indeed a blowout like Vegas is expecting, then the Packers would probably rest Josh Jacobs in the second half, who has been banged up, hasn't missed any time yet, but has been banged up. And in the Packers' last game, he actually got pulled in overtime for Emanuel Wilson, probably an injury-related thing. So if the Packers have a big lead, like Vegas expects, Josh Jacobs is probably going to be on the bench for the second half, which allows Wilson to handle the workload in a positive game script against a really bad defense. And I also think Wilson is explosive too. So I wouldn't be shocked if he has a great game here. Another similar running back play this week is Blake Corum against the Ravens. Both are high upside DFS plays, and I actually might be starting one of them in a super deep managed league too.
I like that quite a bit. And he was a stash, and you guys should have, especially in Dynasty, you should have a little bit more exposure to Wilson. And while I think it would take like a wartime injury to really stop a Josh Jacobs. It feels like he's the kind of guy who plays 15 games every season, whether he's injured or not.
That still leaves you with 2 games.
And that dude's, again, underappreciated stud. But you want to have those RB2s on the depth chart of really good offenses. Because if any of one of those big-time unforeseen accidents, injuries happens to a guy like Josh Jacobs, Wilson's going to slide right in. And not to say that it's going to be a one-for-one comparison or a one-for-one replacement, but if Emanuel Wilson in a replacement role could be 75 to 80% of what Josh Jacobs has given you, that becomes a league winner. I like the call. I like the usage play. So I'm going to go with it. Mine's going to be kind of simple. I'm going right back to the Kendrick Bourne identity. Going right back to Kendrick Bourne. First game, off the street, 11 targets, caught 10 of them. And the wild part for me is that none of the rest of the 49ers seem like they're going to be back. It doesn't seem like Juwan Jennings is going to be back. And by the way, if there was an award, I don't think he wins comeback player of the year. But if there was an award for the least tough-looking guy with the least tough name, I think that award would have to go to Mac Jones. Like, do you have like a memory foam mattress or a memory foam pillow by any chance?
No, but
when you put your hand in it?
Yeah.
And like you can see your hand. That's what Mac Jones looks like he's made out of. And his name is Michael McCorkle Jones. And that dude took an absolute ass whipping last Thursday night. Just got, like, I thought like he had vomit, literal vomit on him, bleeding. And you know what? Dude just kept going. Dude says he's playing this week. That is some gangster
dog.
shit.
He's got that dog, just like Cam Skattebo.
I never thought we would be comparing the play style of Cam Skattebo to the toughness of Mac Jones, but here we are. By the
Am I
way,
wrong?
no, you're not. And by the way, I love these nicknames. It had to have been a 49ers fan. You know, the West Coast likes to lean into the alleged gang activities out there. They call their quarterbacks Mac 10 and Glock Jones.
Nice.
I'm like, that's
Nice.
beautiful. And I know that's hard for you to hear because you got the ginger Jesus that is Sam Darnold out there. But yeah, I'm going Kendrick Bourne. To me, it's easy. 11 targets, no George Kittle, nobody, no Juwan Jennings, no Ricky Pearsall, no Brandon Ayuk. And clearly him and Mac Jones have some kind of instant rapport. They've had 10 days to work on the chemistry. And in PPR leagues, which 99% of our leagues are, he's just going to feast again this week. He's probably going to give you 16 to 20 just in receptions. If he happens to fall in the end zone, it's a mega play. I absolutely love Kendrick Bourne this week. Thoughts on and then also look at what the shootout was last week between Tampa Bay and the Seahawks. Now
Exactly.
it could be another shootout here.
Yeah, I mean the Seahawks passing game diced up that Tampa Bay secondary. Even though I do think it is a really, really good secondary. The 49ers offense just not missing a beat no matter who is out there. Juwan Jennings might play this week. If he does play, then you should probably start him. But you can also start Kendrick Bourne. I think it's going to run through those two guys. And yeah, I got really nothing else to say. It's an easy one.
100%. Let's dash through the stashes real quick. That way we can save as much time as we can at the end to get through what's already a bunch of questions. But keep asking yours. We're going to get to questions here in probably 10-ish minutes, and we'll blast through as many of those as possible. Give us your stash. I like this. If you're watching live on YouTube, he was the thumbnail poster boy. Shout out to Garrett, our producer, for whipping up a quick thumbnail for us. But give us your stash.
My stash is Jalen Coker. You could consider me a cokehead. Coker is likely being activated this week, and I expect him to take over that slot role in Carolina very quickly. Hunter Renfrow has been one of the worst receivers in the NFL this year, while Coker had some real flashes as a rookie last year. He performed very well in reception perception, had insane college production, and he also fits that big slot archetype that has so much NFL success. If Coker can become the second leading target in this offense, which I do expect him to because he's better than Xavier Legette and better than those tight ends that they have, then he could easily be a reliable fantasy starter for us going forward. He also gets to face Dallas this week, so he could immediately emerge as a hot waiver wire target just 1 week into his season, really. And then also just wanted to note that everyone needs to check their redraft waiver wires for Bears rookies, Loveland and Burden. Both have tremendous upside, and that watch out for that post-buy rookie bump because it's a real thing.
Several things you got there. I too am a cokehead, and I like Jalen Coker. Number two, I also like a big slot. This is a call. They play. It's the Cowboys this week, right? It's Cowboys.
Yeah,
it's Cowboys week. I mean, everybody eats on Cowboys week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I actually, and this is something that I've prided myself on as a content creator, is I don't want to do the same takes as everybody else. A lot of people have been on Tet McMillan. This to be Tet McMillan's breakout game. I could totally get behind that.
Yeah.
And it's the Rico Dowdle revenge game.
Mm-hmm.
Rico, I mean, what a pivot last week by Jonny. He pivoted to Rico Dowdle at the last minute. Dude, last week we have big shoes to fill. Last week between me talking about Theo Johnson, and I was like, I saw the first touchdown. I was like, we couldn't. And then how your sleeper alerts go off.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I didn't clear it. It said Theo Johnson touchdown. I was like, that can't be. And sure enough, it was 2. But no, man, Jalen Coker slam dunk. I like the call on Burden and Colston Loveland. And shout out to our boy Theo, 2 weeks in a row, Grimminger. He's talking about, is A.J. Brown a trade candidate? And I almost did this on the Dynasty Warzone. But if you go in and look at A.J. Brown's contract, it is very punitive to the Eagles this year and next year on the salary cap if they were to cut or trade him. Not very likely. But do you know who is very tradable and whose contract is very maneuverable? It's DJ Moore. And if DJ Moore goes in Chicago, Burden and Loveland, as you know, they had to learn the NFL the first month of the season. Then they get the 2 weeks because of the bye to get more worked into. I'm very curious to see what the Bears look like. And speaking of the bye, my guy is on the bye this week, and he's so he's on the BYE, and now you can do the BUY and buy Zavier Scott. You know, he's kind of like my version this week of Emanuel Wilson. He's the RB2 on the Minnesota Vikings. I know Aaron Jones will be back at some point, but he's in year 9. He's not for long. He is an older third-year pro. He's 26 years old, but he's been involved in the passing game. He had 8 targets, caught 6 of them in the loss to Pittsburgh. And then last week, he had 8 carries for 30 yards. And I don't want to say they benched Jordan Mason, but it looked like for a portion of the game, Jordan Mason rode the pine for a fumble. Again, good offense, not too far from the starting lineup, which means he's going to score points. And it's kind of wide open. And he could be part of this backfield for the next couple of years. So from Dynasty, I don't mind stashing Zavier Scott. I saw you smile when I mentioned him. Beautiful hair, by the way.
Yeah. When I pulled up his page, that's the first thing I saw was the hair. I was smiling because it's just, man, this is a real deep one, and like these are the kind of guys that I could like reasonably expect to be on my waiver wires, which is it's rare to find anybody with any value on those.
I literally got him today as I was doing this research. I got him in a 12-team, 25-man. Plus 5-man taxi squad. So you're talking 360 rostered players in a league with dynasty and fantasy content creators. Old boy was on the waiver wire, and I plucked him right up.
Yep. And you know, it is a narrow bet for Zavier Scott to ever hit your starting lineup, but it is possible. All that would really need to happen is a Jordan Mason injury within the next 2 or 3 weeks. If that happens, then now Zavier Scott is a reasonable flex play. So I'm with it. Do you have their upcoming matchups?
Yeah, give me just one second. I can pop that right up because I still have his page pulled up on Pro Football Reference. They come back from the bye. They play the Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Ravens, Bears, Packers, Seahawks, and then the fantasy playoffs when this is the kind of stash where that could pay off. At the Cowboys, at the Giants, home to the Lions. That's weeks 15, 16, 17. And he could very well be like the kind of guy that – you remember 2 years ago when Isaac Guerrero from the 49ers in Dynasty, people were getting, rookie second-round picks for Isaac Guerrero just because they were literally paying a second-round pick for a 3-week rental. And I don't blame you if you're chasing a Dynasty championship, but this is the hard case behind a Zavier Scott or an Emanuel Wilson in Dynasty. That's why you stash these guys, because if they're balling out in point producing time, then you're going to have a chance to get rid of them for some real capital.
Yeah, I like it. And also we don't know if Aaron Jones is actually going to come back healthy. That hasn't been super common throughout his
Aaron
career.
Jones always comes back. He's never healthy for long. It was like 2 years ago. It was like the most shocking thing in the history of the world. He played like almost an entire season. But more often than not, this guy misses large chunks of a season. He'll miss 3 or 4 games. He'll come back. He'll miss 3 or 4 more games. And to his credit, he's still managed to have a 9-year NFL career. But this guy could be a Band-Aid, but he's the kind of short-term investment. I want to get him on my roster now, and I want to get him off of my roster by the end of the season, because you have to think in the offseason, Minnesota, which they brought Jordan Mason on this past offseason, but they'll be looking for a larger long-term solution in Minnesota. Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure. This is a deep Dynasty League stash. And there's a decent chance that you just end up cutting him at the end of the season without anything happening. But there's also a small chance that this could really work and you could all of a sudden sell him for a third. Or if it happens at the perfect moment, maybe even a second. Who knows? I kind of doubt it, but
the move would be is you're looking for a situation where you can send him in a third for a second.
Sure.
That's the dream scenario. And if your season has went from a dream to a nightmare and you're looking for something to do this weekend, check out the Flex 6.
I know your sad draft season is over, but just because the NFL season starts doesn't mean the drafting stops. Because Fast Draft has the Flex 6 frenzy. You're drafting 6 guys for the Sunday slate against 9 other competitors. It's fast, it's furious, it's fun. And as with everything on Fast Draft, there are no salaries. Woo! So go to draftfaster.com, get the app, use your host promo code for a $50 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
You cannot beat the enthusiasm in which the Podfather does a good live read, and you're not competing against 9 other people anymore. You're competing against 7. The number of teams in each game, division, bracket, whatever the hell you want to call it, is now down to 7. It's 8 team per Flex 6. Check that out. The promo codes are FAST, F-A-S-T, or Warzone, both all caps, and that'll get you that dollar for dollar match up to $50. All right, first question for you. Jonathan Mulheiney, hope I got that right. Trade Dak and CeeDee Lamb for Josh Allen and Trey McBride. His other wide receivers would be Jamar Chase, Rome Odunze, and Nico Collins. His current tight end is Mason Taylor. Feel like he's chasing some upside there. So, and this is a full point per PPR, so no tight end premium. But are you making that deal? Because I am.
Yeah. Give me the Josh Allen, Trey McBride side. I don't know if this is redraft or dynasty, but I don't think it really matters.
It feels like Josh dynasty to me.
Team. It does.
It feels like dynasty the way it's worded. This person speaks.
Yeah, and he has Chase and Nico. That would be impossible in redraft.
This person speaks in dynasty, like the way that it's written and worded.
Yeah,
it's like after you do dynasty for as long as we have, it's like you can almost read like your own language. So this feels like dynasty.
Yeah, definitely dynasty. Now that I look more at it with Chase, CeeDee, and Nico. But yeah, give me Josh Allen.
Yeah, for me, this is twofold. One, Josh Allen is the clear QB1 in all of fantasy sports right now. And it's not close. You have the guys in that next tier, the Lamar, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts. I think Drake May is weaseling his way into that conversation very quickly. But Josh Allen currently is on an island unto himself. But then, like CeeDee Lamb, like you've got guys in the CeeDee Lamb category already. You got Jamar Chase. He's already in that bucket. And then you have other guys who are close. Rome Odunze. If you're looking for Mike Evans 2.0, that's Rome Odunze. 20 catches on the season, doesn't matter. Still a top 8 wide receiver because catches a lot of touchdowns. That's not an insult, by the way, to be called Mike Evans part 2. It's really, really good thing. But then you talk about Trey McBride, Hall of Famer. Better career stats than Devontae Adams. Look it up, gang. But for me, it's about Trey McBride. You're putting yourself in that top echelon of tight ends. It is Brock Bowers. It is Tyler Warren. It is McBride. There's your 1, 2, 3. I don't care which order you want to put them in. If McBride could ever manage to consistently find the end zone, he would have a legitimate gripe to be the dynasty tight end 1 overall. Nothing against Mason Taylor. He could have a nice career. This will set your roster apart from those in your league. CeeDee Lamb, not really going to do that for you, even with the guys you got. But adding a Josh Allen, adding a Trey McBride to what is already a really stacked wide receiver room, I think this is a slam dunk in a vacuum and given his situation.
Yep. Don't even need to discuss it any further. Just do the trade.
Perfect. We're going to throw this one up. This one might tickle your fancy. Golden Goose, Mariners minus 1.5 runs. Book it. Book it, he said. Hey, if Goose says book it, we're going to book it. G-Hop, Keon Coleman or TreVeyon Henderson. This has to be redraft.
Yes, probably weekly, right?
it would have to be some sort of a weekly format where you set a lineup. So I'm thinking like just a traditional fantasy league, 10, 12 teams, probably like looking at flex consideration.
Yeah, I have TreVeyon projected for like 2 more points than Keon this week. So give me TreVeyon. And that's with me expecting roughly a 50-50 split in that backfield. So maybe you think it's 60-40 Ramondre, and I would still argue that it's TreVeyon in that situation.
Well, for me, this probably would have leaned a little heavier Coleman, but the Antonio Gibson issue last week takes him out for the rest of the season. And at some point, you would think he's not old like is in comparison to his peers, like Andy Reid or Pete Carroll, but you would think an old-fashioned learned under the Bill Belichick tree, Mike Vrabel. You would think at some point the Ramondre Stevenson fumble thing would become more punitive. You think there would be a half on the bench. I don't know if Ramondre has like pictures of Mike Vrabel in a compromising position with farm animals. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, at some point you've got to invest more in TreVeyon. I think both of these guys, I think you could easily start both as a RB2 flex, Henderson or Stevenson. It's a decent matchup against the Saints this week. And at some point, it's like, you got to see what you have in this kid. I mean, it's a race car. It's a race car that you're taking out for Sunday drives. Dude, let a race car be a race car. And don't feel like you're saving it for something, man. I'm going to go Henderson as well, and I'll see if I can't get to Vrabel. I know he watches, but Mike, if you're listening, you got to give more to the young guy. I'm not saying you have to punish Stevenson, but you got to give a larger share to the rookie. All right, Mad Machio, 0.5 PPR flex spot, Marvin Mims, Alec Ayomanor, or Jalen Coker. I'm going to let you answer this first because I already know where you're going.
Actually, I don't know if this is as easy as you think, just because this is Jalen Coker's first game back. I do think that this is close between him and Ayomanor, who also has a really good matchup. Really, Tennessee's first decent matchup of the season versus the Raiders. I'm actually leaning towards Ayomanor. Just waiting. Man, this hurts. Because if you sit Jalen Coker against Dallas and he puts up 20, it's going to hurt so much. Geez, where are you leaning here? Because I'm still leaning Ayomanor because we've seen the target share and it's a good matchup.
I stand on my previous statement from last week's show. All Tennessee Titans remain on probation until future considerations. For me, I'm actually leaning Coker. I think this Dallas Carolina game has a shot. Now, mind you, there are some big potential high scoring games this week. Lions Chiefs has a high scoring game written all over it. If Kyler plays, I think the Indy Arizona game could have some points. But I saw Evan Ingram get more involved last week in Denver, and the Jets defense is terrible. So I don't see them needing to lean on Marvin Mims this week. Courtland Sutton, there may not be a more undervalued or underappreciated wide receiver one in fantasy right now than Courtland Sutton. They're getting Evan Ingram up to speed, which means no need for Marvin Mims to have a large role. Again, the Titans are going to lean on double secret probation until future notice. So I'm going to I'm going to go with your boy Coker in what should be a shootout between the Cowboys and the Panthers. I'm feeling like 27-31, and Coker easily walks away with like 6 for 80 with a 50% chance of a tutty. He gets the tutty. Now you're talking 20 PPR points. I don't see 20 PPR points in the. I mean, there's a greater than 0% chance that Ayomanor or Mims does it, but there's not a much greater than 0 chance. So I'm sticking with your boy Coker.
Yeah, I'm with it. You convinced me. On Mims, you mentioned that the Titans are on probation for you. For me, anyone outside of Courtland Sutton and maybe J.K. Dobbins on the Broncos, I'm not interested. I don't want to be Sean Payton again. I've been Sean Payton too many times. It just ignore the guys that are like fringe plays, fringe fantasy guys on Denver, because Sean Payton will screw you over. It will happen.
I'm here to tell you, as we get deeper toward the fantasy playoffs, if J.K. Dobbins continues to do well, right as we get to about week 13, 14, is when he'll hit you with the Uno reverse card, and all of a sudden it will be all R.J. Harvey all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is what Sean Payton does. He is not a fan of us fantasy footballers. No. He loves torturing our soul. And just when you think you have the Sean Payton offenses read, no, we're gonna change that up. So, yep, we're going Coker in that one. Mad Machio, P Money. Hey fellas, Henderson or Vidal, 0.5 point PPR.
I think this has to be TreVeyon still. When you look at the touches, we should expect Henderson to at least see as many touches as Kamani Vidal, if not more, just because he's more trustworthy. Vidal's he was on the practice squad to start the year. I'm not convinced that Harbaugh and Roman actually trust the guy. He does have a little bit of upside. It's a great matchup and all that, but we know that TreVeyon is going to get a decent share of touches, even if it's not up to what we want. And he's more explosive than Kamani Vidal too. So I think it's pretty simple.
I mean, for me, the Miami matchup is pretty good for Vidal.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But for me, the offensive line's super banged up.
Yeah.
And again, he wouldn't be there without the injuries to Najee and Omari and Hampton. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Henderson. Because if they get what a better game to start getting Henderson more involved than the first game without Antonio Gibson and against the team that you're a big favorite against. You take the air out of the ball, you run the ball. And the one thing about Henderson that I can't say for Vidal is, like, we remember how hyped we were for Henderson in the preseason. It felt like every touch he made in the preseason, he took to the house. He's got that in the bag. So if I'm going to bank on one of these guys, especially you're in a situation where you have to pick one of those two, you're probably an underdog. And if I'm an underdog, I'm going to go with the big second round draft pick out of Ohio State versus the guy off of the practice squad that's there out of necessity, not by choice. I'm going to go right back.
Last year in that Chargers backfield, it was Haskins, Vidal, Gus Edwards, and Vidal was completely useless except for one wheel route that was super cool, and everyone thought that he was going to break out. He didn't do anything. So just keep him on the bench, please. Don't start him.
P Money had a follow-up. He said Kendrick, Bourne, or Harvey as the me and Cody Carpentier were the big RJ Harvey truthers here at Player Profiler. And as the one of the two, I'm going to give Cody the nod as the OG of the OG Harvey truthers. I'm leaning Bourne.
Oh, I don't think it's close.
I think this game is going to be a shootout. That's another game that's going to be a shootout, potentially 49ers, Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. And, Bourne has already got the eye of Mac Jones. I'm just going to chase that volume with Kendrick Bourne. I would love to say it was going to be RJ Harvey, and that against a horrible Jets defense, it was going to be the RJ Harvey breakout game. But I don't feel as comfortable thinking that as I do Kendrick Bourne keeps it up with a banged up 49ers.
You can try to predict Sean Payton usage if you want. I'm not going to. I'll go with Kendrick Bourne, who smashed last week and has another pretty good matchup this week.
All right, Jelly of the Month Cup. What's up, Jelly? Jelly here every week, dropping in for some questions. And hey, that's why we love you. Thank you for dropping by. Speaking of drop, do you drop Ollie Gordon for Luther Burden or Isaiah Davis? I mean, this is easy for you. You've already said this. 14, but Gordon could be a 14-round keeper.
Yeah, I don't really care. I don't think there's a world where Ollie Gordon is worth that much more than a 14th round pick going into next year. I guess unless there is a big Etienne injury. But you have that same upside with Isaiah Davis this year. But I would go with Luther Burden. Isaiah Davis, also a great stash. Look at your roster. Do you need running back upside? Do you need wide receiver upside? For most situations, I would lean Burden here, but Isaiah Davis, also a great stash. much better than Ollie Gordon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm fine with dropping Ollie for either of these guys. But Luther Burden, just I got two words for you: draft capital. If this is Dynasty or a keeper league, we're talking Luther Burden, second rounder, a guy that this time last year and leading up to the NFL draft was largely considered a guy who could have went in the first round. And it just feels like the NFL, obviously there's a lot of first round stars out there, but it just feels like the NFL is littered with guys taken at the top of the second round, like Michael Pittman, like T. Higgins, that just go on to have really successful NFL careers. And I kind of feel like that's Luther Burden. And I think once he gets loose, whether that's because DJ Moore gets traded at the deadline, maybe gets moved in the offseason, when Luther Burden, I want to say he could have a little bit of Debo to his game. Not maybe quite the runner of Debo, but a guy who could be used in a gadgety sort of way, close to the line of scrimmage. They could do some – for me, it's Luther Burden. If it's any kind of a keeper dynasty format, if it's a seasonal league and you want to hang on to Isaiah Davis, because there is hot and heavy talk right now that Breece Hall is a trade candidate. Going to be a pending free agent. The Jets could use the extra draft capital. You don't build around running backs. You shouldn't put running backs on bad teams. I'm talking directly to you, Las Vegas Raiders. Nothing better than putting Ashton Genty behind a horrible offensive line. I could go completely sideways. For me, I agree. You could go either way, but I lean to the talent and draft capital.
Oh, yeah. He just put in the chat that he could potentially keep Burden next year for a round 11 pick. So
yeah.
In that situation, yeah, I would love to do that, because there's immense upside with these rookie receivers, with draft capital, with talent, so much college production. We're just getting off of the bye, which is a big time where the coaches like to get these rookie receivers more involved. So I would go with Burden.
And earlier in the show, I compared Rome Odunze to like a Mike Evans. I would be 0% shocked if we look up in like 2 years and Luther Burden and Rome Odunze are doing what Mike Evans and Chris Godwin did a couple of years ago. You just have a couple of guys with a good offensive coordinator / head coach and quarterback that are just filling it up, just filling it up in the stat sheet. Yeah, for me, Luther Burden. I don't think it's as close as I once thought. George, I like how it's just George. And beautiful picture of your puppers. Hey, what's up, puppers? Would you stream Tonges? Tonges? Is that how you pronounce that? The backup tight end?
I've heard Tonges, but I don't really know.
Looks like tongs, like the tongs of death. Would you stream tongs? We're going to go with tongs because it sounds like thongs. Would you stream tongs given Pearsall and Kittle out? Also has Mason Taylor. Look, and one thing I'll tell you what Mason Taylor may do, he may be blocking his ass off against the tough ass versus the pass and the quarterback in sacks and the Denver Broncos over in jolly old England. So I'm definitely going tongs. And then secondly, Sam Darnold or TLaw. Oof. I mean, how can you go against the Ginger Jesus? I mean, he's just looked some sort of I don't know, though. This is a tough matchup. We talked about this stat earlier in the show. I could see Trevor Lawrence, the way they're using him with his wheels. Darnold, but I don't love it. What about you?
I'm going Lawrence just because of the injuries in the Seahawks secondary. We saw Baker really take advantage of that last week. I mean, Emeka Egbuka had nobody within 10 yards of him, I swear, on every single play. So that's probably going to lead to more points than Darnold versus the Jags, in my opinion. And then why are we going Tonges over Mason Taylor? What? Mason Taylor is in the middle of a crazy breakout. He's got like a 25% target share the last 2 weeks. Like he is the wide receiver 2 in this offense, and it is the number 1 garbage time fantasy offense. It's just beautiful to watch. If you only watch the beginning of the game and the end of the game, you'll think that this is the best offense in football. Just ignore like the second and third quarter, especially. Mason Taylor, man, what are we doing?
All right. Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I've watched a lot of Law and Order. So, like when you cry objection in the courtroom and the judge says overruled, My co-host has overruled me. I agree. I'm going to go Mason Taylor for all of the reasons that you said. Although I don't mind either way. I think the 49ers Buccaneers game is going to be a bit of a shootout, and I would not be surprised if Tonges fell in the end zone. And then you got me on Darnold. As much as I always want to back Sammy, the one thing I will bank on is I will bank on Liam Cohen. Out of all of the new head coaches in year one of their coaching career, I think Liam Cohen has got to be the most impressive to date. Like if you would, because like I think currently 4-1, it's the Colts, it's the Bills, it's the Jaguars. If you said, hey, all of these teams are going to be 4-1, like they told you like on Labor Day, hey, these teams are going to be 4-1. Which one's the most surprising? Well, I go, well, the Bills are the Bills. That makes sense. I'd be like, oh, Daniel Jones must be playing his ass off. And then the Jags would have been the shocking one. And I'm going to bank on Liam Cohen. I'm going to bank. It's a great matchup between an offensive head coach in Liam Cohen and a defensive head coach in Mike McDonald. It's going to be a really fun game. I'll probably have that on in the 4 box this weekend. This one right here is near and dear to my heart. I have family in the Marine Corps, and Marine Corps is considered the crayon eaters. And Mad Machio said Skattebo is a crayon-eating meathead. It's great. Love it. Yeah, that's a fact. You cannot go wrong with a crayon eater reference on this podcast. All right, John Lopez, how we feel about moving QJ Quentin Johnson for Breece Hall full PPR? He already has Lad.
Yeah, I would do that. Don't really have to discuss it a ton, honestly. If you already have Lad, then you should definitely be looking to move one of them, and I think that's a pretty solid deal. I have Breece around RB15 rest of the season.
Whether Breece Hall gets traded now or goes to a new team next season, he's 95% not going to be a Jet next year. Pending free agent, there's a lot of spots that he could go to, and I would 100% want to be on the Breece Hall side. I mean, you look at guys, I mean, we've already talked about all the guys in year 9, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. All of these guys are in year 9. You got Jonathan Taylor balling out in year 6 or 7. It's nothing to think that Breece Hall in years 5, 6, 7, even 8 of his NFL career couldn't go crazy. You can easily find wide receiver production like Quentin Johnston's had. I don't know that that's sustainable. And so, yeah, for me, easily, I will take Breece Hall. We have a super chat. And on the super chat, we will bounce. And it's Scotty. And this is a dynasty question. This is a big one, Evan. In a dynasty league, would you give up Jahmyr Gibbs for Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, and DJ Giddens? I am currently rebuilding on this team. Love the show.
I could be the guy that's asking for what's the format. What else could we do here? But I just don't think this is enough, at least unless it's a deep league. You can get more for Gibbs. And if you're rebuilding, try to get a first thrown in there just to give you a little bit of upside. You can definitely get more.
100%. Unless this is a league where you get some kind of unique scoring for guys whose first names start with unique letters like Z and X. Which I've never heard of one. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But yeah, I mean, you're talking, I mean, for me, I know probably 95% of people out there have Bijan Robinson as the RB1 in Dynasty overall. For me, it's Jahmyr Gibbs. I like where you're going. The career arc normally on a running back is not as long as that of an elite wide receiver. If I were moving Jahmyr Gibbs, I would be looking to go get Malik Neighbors and a little something.
Good call.
Great call. That's the kind of one-to-one move that I would like to make. I would like to go get
you can get a plus. You can get Neighbors and a plus. Right?
I think that's fair. Like a deal that I love making, even as a non-contender and a rebuilder, if you can go get Malik Neighbors and a contender's first for Jahmyr Gibbs and your non-contender second, the difference between those picks could be like could literally be as close as the 112 and the 201, but it does not matter. There is this perception and this mental psychology of that pick being a first. And when you get a first and like you go to trade it later in the offseason and you can package that first with something else, then maybe you can layer. Now the difference between hitting, and let's say it's the 110 and the 204. The difference in those 6 players is not going to be a tremendously big one. But when you go to make future trades and you're adding that first to something else because you're trying to layer up. But yeah, I like the idea of getting a young stud wide receiver. And you won't find many fans of Zay Flowers bigger than me and DJ Giddens, by the way. Talk about an Emanuel Wilson, Xavier Scott type guy, but like a much better athlete on a good team. I like where your head's at and trying to do this, Scotty, but I think you need to go big game hunting with a name like Jahmyr Gibbs. If you were doing, I'll ask you on the way out, Evan, if we were doing a non-super flex, because when you do super flex, your first round is disproportionately quarterbacks. Usually somewhere between 8 to 10 picks in the first round are all QBs given that format. But let's go one QB. Where do you think Jahmyr Gibbs goes in a 1 QB? Between 1 and 6?
Yeah, currently have him at 6. He might be moving up to 5 this week. We'll see. But it's around that area, in my opinion.
I mean, you get down into the 30s before you say the name Xavier Woods or Zay Flowers. Yeah. So that is the gap. And 2 of those guys, I just don't think you're getting enough, Scotty. So that's what I would recommend. But we appreciate everybody listening. But
I like Scotty's idea. You do want to split assets when you're rebuilding, and he is splitting assets into 2 good players and a really good stash. But these guys just aren't good enough. So I love Memphis's idea of going to try and get Malik Neighbors in a plus, or you can go, one tier up from Zay Flowers and attack, I don't know, guys like Ladd McConkey or Tedero McMillan, Garrett Wilson. That would be a tier I'd be interested in, and then a significant plus on top of that.
Yeah, and I do believe if you're going to start a rebuild, you got to do it around the wide receiver position. And it's funny because his name continues to come up, but Mike Evans. If you drafted Mike Evans in Dynasty, then you've had him on your team for 10 years. 10 years. Even coming off of the injury next year. And mind you, he tore his ACL early enough that Malik Neighbors should be ready to go week 1. It's not a Brandon Ayuk situation where he did it late in the year. But yeah, you're not going to get a Puka. You're not going to get a CeeDee Lamb. Maybe. I don't know. But that's the range. But like Drake London, who's underperformed, Emeka Ibuka, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Roma Dunze, Nico Collins, that's the range in a first. You want to get in that pocket of dynasty wide receiver 6 through 10 and a first for Jahmyr Gibbs. Drake London might be a good target because he's not performed at the level of those guys yet. He's coming off of the bye. He should be healthier. But yeah, Scotty, we like where you're at. But speaking of where we're at, I've got to get Evan out of the studio. And is it still Safeco? Is it still Safeco Park?
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile.
Wish it was Safeco, but
oh man, I am super jealous. We're at the end of the show. For me personally, people listen to Dynasty Warzone know this. I coach baseball, and 2 of the guys that I coach are seniors, and it's football season. And one of them reached out and said, "Hey, Caleb and I would love to see you at senior night for football." So I was like, I showed my wife the text. I'm like, look like I'm going to go watch some high school football tonight. So it's not quite Friday Night Lights like it is in Texas, but I will be watching some football. My boys, Alistair and Caleb. But man, even when Jonny said, hey guys, and Jonny, we hope everything's well with the family. I hope you get everything squared away. Hope you're back next week. I just love doing this show. I love talking ball. And the big thing is the questions. The questions at the end make it so much fun. But Evan, get you out of here. Go Mariners. Now, if they win, who will they play?
They'll play the Blue Jays.
That's right. They'll play the Blue Jays. Did you see the thing with Vlad Guerrero the other day with the champagne celebration, making fun of the famous Yankees announcer? Awesome. him and Big Papi. So on the way out, we'll give you Yankees lose.
Yankees lose.
We'll see you next week.
Also, Jerry, I did see your chat. Tigers suck. Go Mariners. Suck it.
I have nothing else, Jerry. Jerry can always suck it.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.